Welcome back to Cyberpunk Month. I'm reading Cyberpunk books all month, and this is the second or third review in the month, and I've already messed up. This one's not really a Cyberpunk book, is it? Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick, the book that the fantastic movie Blade Runner is based on. I've read Philip K. Dick once before. I read *𝕬𝕝, which I absolutely adored, one of my favourite books of all time. And Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep definitely shares a lot of those themes and the same sort of writing style. I believe this one was written just before he got kind of weird with things like he does in *𝕬𝕝, but you can see a lot of it coming into play here. But before we get into any of that, there is one important question. Whenever anyone talks about a book like this that has been made into a movie, the only question that comes up is, in this example, is this book better than Blade Runner? And look, it's a complicated question. They're both different. No, it's not. Blade Runner's better than this book. Look, I did like the book. The book is pretty good, but it is not Blade Runner. I'll touch a bit more at the end of the video on why I like the movie so much more. But for now, let's just jump right into talking about the book. In Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, we follow Rick Deckard. He is a bounty hunter for the LA Police Department in the post-apocalyptic future. The world has been destroyed by World War III, World War Terminus as they call it, and there is radioactive dust raining down everywhere. It is deteriorating many of the humans that are left and making them physically and mentally disabled in many places. And those people that are left are often mostly seeking a way off-world. Most humans now live in colonies on Mars, where conditions are not fantastic, but they do have, luckily, this slave race of androids to do all the really hard work for them. The androids obviously aren't a fan of this and sometimes trying to escape back to what they think would be an idealized life back on Earth. Rick Deckard is a bounty hunter. It is his job to find and retire these androids. And we follow him as he looks for 6 of the latest version of androids, the Nexus 6 types, who have already nearly killed his senior bounty hunter. And then we kind of just follow Rick Deckard through the course of maybe just a day and a bit throughout the course of this book. So I said earlier in the video that I don't think this book's actually cyberpunk. I think I was expecting this to be cyberpunk because Blade Runner is so clearly cyberpunk. Blade Runner is probably where we get our idea of what cyberpunk looks like. The visual language of cyberpunk probably comes from Blade Runner, I think. And so when I knew that this book was the book that Blade Runner was based on, but I didn't know anything else beyond that. So I was a bit surprised going into it when I found out that actually most of that cyberpunk stuff, that's 100% Blade Runner, baby. The setting and the world of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is clearly like a precursor to that cyberpunk world that we're moving towards with Blade Runner and *𝕚𝕚𝕚𝕚, but we're missing elements of it that I would say are kind of core to the cyberpunk genre. Things like, well, the punk part of the cyberpunk, I would say, is a large missing part. There's no anti-authority, there's no anti-authoritarianism, there's no counterculture sort of stuff going on here. And while we are living in that sort of dystopia, somewhat company-controlled, corporate, capitalist, hellish thing that cyberpunk really is, it's clearly in its juvenile form in this book. So I think we can definitely thank this book for a lot of the things that become cyberpunk. But I think I've already messed up a little bit by reading a book that isn't technically cyberpunk during Cyberpunk Month. But the things that I liked. Okay, first off, it's not super cyberpunky, but the actual technology in display here is super imaginative and super interesting, which is no surprise coming from Philip K. Dick. 2 of the biggest examples right off the bat in the very first chapter are the mood machine, a machine which you dial numbers into and then that affects your mood. One of the moods is the happiness to watch TV without any care for what is on, or just things like peacefulness or happiness or sleepiness or depression. And I think we can all agree that that'd probably be a great machine to have, but also a terrifying implication for it to exist. And then the second really interesting piece of technology also touches on the sort of religious undertones in the book that I really enjoyed, and that would be the empathy machine. Empathy is a core tenet of the book. The entire book is based on the idea that androids can't feel empathy and humans can, and that's the main difference between the two of them. There's many, many long passages talking about the benefits or the negatives of empathy and how empathy changes your actions and changes what you do. And one of the core things that explores empathy in this book is the empathy machine. It's this machine that when you hold onto it, your consciousness is combined with everyone else that's currently using an empathy machine as you run through a memory simulation, religious experience of a man called Mercer as he walks up a mountain, being assailed by dangers unseen. And I think that the uses of these two pieces of technology does a really good job of trying to show the hypocrisy of the humans against the androids. The androids are sometimes come off as a bit dulled emotionally, and their entire thing is they're supposed to not be able to feel empathy. And yet here we have humans right off the bat using a machine to control what emotions they're going to feel, and then using another machine to prove to themselves that they have empathy, to feel a form of empathy that is forced upon the user by the experience of the machine itself. And that's one of the themes running through the book that I really enjoyed. The other one is the world building in general. It's not cyberpunky, but it is this post-apocalyptic dystopia. There's a lot of talk about people having animals, and that's how you show that you're empathetic to things that aren't just humans, is you have an animal. But animals are expensive because most of them have gone extinct because of the war, and the people that don't have animals would be looked down upon, so they often have fake animals that they know are fake but on the outside appear real. Rick Deckard, for example, does have a fake sheep, an electric sheep. And Rick Deckard's driving goal for most of this book is to get himself a real animal. He spends a lot of the book flipping through a catalogue checking the prices of animals, and it feels very Philip K. Dick. But there are some things that didn't super excite me in this book. First off, the characters are fairly flat, I think. And this is probably just because I'm coming from a point of view where I've seen Blade Runner, so I know what Rick Deckard in Blade Runner is like, and Rick Deckard in Blade Runner is just a better character, I think. In this one, he's just a bit flat. His motivations are pretty selfish. None of the characters seem super fully fleshed out, especially the androids for the most part. There's one or two that we get to know a little bit better, but for the most part, again, the androids are very flat, which makes a bit more sense there, but then a lot of the humans feel that way too. And something that doesn't, I think, help that is Philip K. Dick's sort of ethereal, dreamlike sort of writing style, and that's as present here as it is in 𝕬𝕝, I feel, where, and I struggle to put words to this feeling, I feel like our characters move from scene to scene without a huge amount of impetus, without a huge amount of agency. Things in this book just kind of happen in the order that they happen in, and then the pacing just kind of feels like it just goes beat to beat to beat to beat to beat without any sort of moments of super high tension or excitement for me. And it just left me with a feeling at the end of the book where I knew when I put it down I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would have, but I also couldn't point to a lot of reasons why. I think I can just point to things that it didn't excite me. It didn't get me super hyped. And it might be partly due to how old it is. It might be because I'm comparing it unfairly to Blade Runner, or perhaps a bit more fairly to 𝕬𝕝. And that comparison to Blade Runner is interesting because I can see now that Blade Runner is very much inspired by rather than based on this book, and that it took the core story concepts and some character names and really did change a lot of things. It changed most of the ending for far better. It changed the actual case involved. It changed all the characters. And in almost every aspect, I think it did a much better job. I think this is a very important book. I think it's really interesting to read this having read ℚ𝕚𝕚𝕚 and having seen Blade Runner and being able to point at things and be like, oh, I can see that was the beginnings of this idea. I can see that was the beginnings of this movement of cyberpunk. But as for the book itself, it just didn't excite me that much. The book is still good. Technically, it's good and it's probably great, but just for me, it just didn't get there. There are a few great scenes in this book, but they're just, for me, interspersed with scenes that were just there. Scenes that were just fine. There's no real bad parts of this book, but there's no real amazing parts of this book either. So overall, I'm going to give this book a 6 out of 10. Which might be a bit low for a classic like this, and it might just be because of the time that I read it in. But for me, it didn't live up to the expectations I had. And so yeah, it gets a 6 out of 10. What's next for Cyberpunk month though? Next I'm doing Snow Crash, which I've already started reading and am really enjoying so far. I had to put it down for a second to pick it back up because I wasn't expecting how over the top it was and how much pizza delivery there was going to be. So if you're looking forward to that review, then let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you thought of Durandroid's Dream of Electric Sheep and let me know how wrong I am. I know on this one I'm wrong. I know this isn't a popular opinion. This was just my experience. But if you're still watching, thank you so much. If you want to check out any of the other videos from Cyberpunk Month, the playlist should be right about here. And most of all, remember to keep watching. Thank you very much.